we both live in New York. I'm traveling right now. I'm visiting my brother and my little nieces in Chicago. So
Okay, cool.
Central Time.
Right on. Yep, we're in the zone, and you have
Yeah.
history in the 816, so we'll get into all of that. And Strum's the new album, but before we get into the album, how did you guys get through COVID? Does it feel comforting to have an album out now? How did you kind of survive that period with new projects happening?
Well, we already put out our COVID album. That was a couple of years ago.
Okay. Okay.
The last album, Omega, was really the one that we did mostly in lockdown, just in the very beginning of the lockdown.
Sure.
We had a plan for the release of that, which of course changed when nobody could do anything. Luckily, I have a really nice home studio, which you can see behind me, and
Yeah.
a lot of the musicians that I was working with also have a really nice home studio. This one was done also mostly in this studio, but the drummer lives in Paris most of the tracks, and he did a lot of his work over there. It recorded it in essentially the same way. It was just not out of necessity, but just it became a really convenient workflow.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
We had started that one just to comment on that. We had started that one before kind of when were the sessions for that were in the fall of 19. Is that right, Joe?
All of 19, and then the world ended spring of 20.
Yeah.
Right. So we kind of had some bed tracks and then it was a matter of finishing. Whereas, this is kind of the first one where start to finish, we were like really, really able to do it in exactly the way we planned, right?
Yeah.
So you have Kansas City roots, and my dad used to always joke around when we watched the Chiefs, if these guys end up winning the Super Bowl again, the whole world come to a stop. And of course, in February 2020, when we had the parade for the first one, what happened? Everything came to a stop.
Yeah.
It was the Chiefs' fault.
Yeah, of course.
So, so you have Kansas City roots. Talk to me a little bit about each of you respectively, where your roots are and kind of your musical influences. I mean, kind of as a part of the collective of Nine Horses.
Yeah. So I have Kansas City roots. We moved around a lot when I was growing up, but I like to kind of say that I have Kansas City roots because that's where I started playing the bass.
Okay.
And I got connected with as a young kid with an amazing Kansas City bass player and pedagogue named Johnny Hamill, who's still there working and playing gigs all night and then teaching all day, for young kids all the way through adults. And he was the one who really kind of like instilled me with a love of music and of the bass specifically. But then also kind of just as, when you're just starting your journey in learning music, everything is brand new and it's like the whole world is opening up to you. And so I feel really grateful that in that moment I was in a city that has such a culture and rich history with music and with jazz especially.
Yeah.
And I was around people who could kind of show me that. And that was, that was everything. That was like, I think my life looks in no way similar to what it does today if I wasn't there in that place and time and with those people. So
yeah. How about you, Joe?
Well, I was born in New York, but actually raised in Florida.
Okay.
And then went to school a little bit in Indiana, finished up my degree at Berkeley in Boston. But then I moved out to Italy for a couple of years. I was studying mandolin out there.
Wow.
But my master's, which I didn't finish, but I started a master's degree in jazz history. And so obviously we studied Count Basie, we studied the Redmonds, we studied, like all these amazing musicians that come from the Kansas City area.
Right on.
But I was a classical kid growing up, and then started studying jazz in my teens. When I was in Italy, I was studying. I had never really had a mandolin teacher. I'd started on violin, but you know, I'm really the second best violin player in this band. So, mandolin is really my primary instrument. I wanted to have a little bit more grounding in mandolin technique. So I went out to Italy to study with a guy named Carlo Alonso out there.
Okay.
And yeah, then came back to the city, and yeah, I've been doing the thing ever since. This is in like the early 2000s. I'm a little
Okay.
older.
So how did the band come together?
Well, about oh gosh, I think it would be about 15 years ago now. All coming up on 15 years ago, I met Sara. Uh, we were playing in the band of a Japanese pop star who had rented out Carnegie Hall, and we were playing in the band together behind this pop star. Sold out Carnegie Hall. I can't even remember the pop star's name. I could probably find it out for you if you want. But we enjoyed playing together, and so we kept playing together as a duo, and did so for a little while. And then it became clear that this is something that we wanted to pursue, but to do it, we really needed to expand the band a little bit, and so we brought on a bass playing element, which is here with us. There's Andrew, and this band has been in its current configuration since 16 or 17. Is that right?
Yeah, 16. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and the music is all written specifically for these musicians, with these musicians in mind, and for the musicians that we collaborate with. We all have a pretty diverse background. Sara knew classical and jazz growing up. Obviously, she's more known as a jazz virtuoso, but she has this incredible classical technique as well. Andrew, same improviser in many different styles, but also has this foundation in classical technique. Same for me. And the music is really kind of written to reflect that. So that, you know, it's not just some music written for mandolin, bass, and violin. It's the music that happens when Joe, Andrew, and Sara are playing together, and reflects our, you know, sort of shared backgrounds and also the diversity of our backgrounds.
Right on. So what has been the key to the longevity of this band?
There's
Andrew,
there's a I don't know if I'm betraying any kind of trust of the musicians union by sharing this, but there's a generally accepted triumvirate of circumstances that have to be in place for music to be fun, which is it has to be good people, good music, and good money. And it's the good money is always the hardest one, you know,
Yep.
of course. But certainly if you have two of the three, it's you say yes to that gig, right? So it's definitely good music and good people. And just to piggyback off of what Joe was just saying about kind of the omnivorous nature of all of our tastes and all of our musics, we kind of, I think of this band as being something that we spend a lot of time apart and doing kind of other projects, working with other groups. I work with a lot of like songwriters kind of in the more Americana scene. Joe, up until a few years ago, was had a seat on a Broadway show. Sara is off doing God knows what with all the heaviest jazz players ever most of the time. And but we can all like come back to this group. And I kind of think of it as the way I explain it to my friends and is that it's the only place, it's the only band I've ever played in where I get to play all of the bass. It's like I go from playing, you know, very simple like 1-1-5, like almost like bluegrass bass lines, to walking to playing extended techniques with the bow, and you know, making weird noises and getting all spectrally. And you know, I think asking a lot, like, and I think that we're all driven to embrace that challenge when Joe as the composer kind of is like asking us questions of like, can you do this, can you know, does this work on your instrument? And for me, when I'm like, when I have to stop and think about it for a second and kind of ask myself like, oh, I actually don't know, nobody's ever asked me to do that before, that's when I'm really in, you know.
So Talk to me a little bit. Let's say you come back to Kansas City with the band and you guys are going to play a show and you have to sell tickets to the show. You have to convince people here to come see you live. How would you explain your show? How would you convince them to come?
Well,
We'd hire PR. We'd hire a promotion.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I think, if you're interested in seeing, very unique music played by musicians who I think it's fair to say are playing at the very highest level, and are playing from a range of influences and taking them all with equal seriousness and performing them and having them pass through us with equal amounts of love. And if that is something that's interesting to you, I think the word that gets used is post-genre. I'm not sure that there really is a word that describes it, but if you're interested in finding out and seeing this sort of thing being done by musicians who are really setting out to challenge ourselves, but also, making something that could only happen when it's the three of us in a room. If that's something that interests you, then you'll enjoy the show. Yeah,
I think my most concise way of talking about this group is that it's somewhere between, or maybe all three of a rock band, a jazz trio, and a chamber group. In that the experience of a concert is usually you're seated, we're on stage, we're reading music, but we're improvising, we're communicating with each other, we're communicating with the audience, and Joe especially does quite a bit of headbanging as the show goes on. So that's right. It kind of covers all of those worlds in a way. Yeah. And it can get loud. It does get loud.
So if anyone wants to pick up the album, learn about any live shows coming up, anything more about the band and you guys respectively, how do they do that?
If you want to get the album, the best place to go is on Bandcamp. It's nine horses with a number 9 horses. Yeah. .bandcamp.com, and that'll take you right to the new album Strum, which is going to be coming out on June 7th. Our second single actually comes out. We're recording this today is April 29th. The second single comes out tomorrow, April 30th. So by the time people hear this, it might already be out. I'm not sure when this is going to be airing. But June 7th it comes out. You can already pre-order it on as a CD, vinyl, or a digital download. And as of tomorrow, you'll be able to hear 2 of the tunes that are just out there in the world, everywhere that music is heard. And of course, you can listen to some of our other stuff as well.
Absolutely. I encourage everybody to do it. I can't wait to get it on the show. Gentlemen, thank you for opening up about the band, taking a little time out. I look forward to profiling you on the program.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, jazz fans. Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are quite excited to let you know about the first annual Lee Summit Jazz Fest taking place this summer on June 22nd, 2024 at the Bridge Space located at 210 Southwest Market Street. There will be 8 robust acts, including the Back Alley Brass Band and the great Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be art vendors and food trucks to make this a must-attend event. All details can be found at www.bridgespace.us/jazz. We will see you there.